Hello, YouTube channel. Today, I will be telling you all about what it means for me to be a musician. What that means is that I make sounds. So, some of my early experiences with music were that, I was raised in the South America, the country of South America. I was raised there. And, in that country, we listen to a little thing called Southern gospel music and country. Specifically, post 9/11 Toby Keith uber nationalist country pop that I think is distinctly different than the 90s period and before, where country was decidedly edgier than the 2000s and onward in terms of like the common zeitgeist you'd find among that genre of music. But as a kid I was very into video games. I was into like Mario, all that shit. But 2004 my sister was being born and my mom gave me Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy. And that game there very much entranced me from that age onwards. As I'd been hearing a bunch of like gospel and country and a lot of music that I might have liked bits and pieces of but otherwise didn't really engage with. In fact, I remember spending a lot of the choir time in church, like counting the ceiling tiles. I was never in choir, I just fucking hated that music. I don't hate gospel nowadays. It depends on what it is. But that specific, like, white southern gospel bullshit that's just so formulaic and, like, does the whole, if he knelt down, then he'll be his favor. And then it goes, and then I say, ah, And then they all join in, they start singing, like, the crescendo shit. And then the preacher starts mumbling because he's too shy to sing. Right, but he'll mumble a little bit of the words because he has the spirit of God in his heart, and he's like, yeah, y'all got to hear this shit too. You all know that even a little me, and I can't sing well worth a lick. Even my voice can tune into the choir of angels. But it sound like fucking shit. No, I hated that bullshit. That shit's fucking garbage. Fuck Southern gospel. But it depends. It does depend. I like some CCM. I like traditional black gospel a lot more. It's tonally interesting. They have part of why I really hate the specific style of gospel I was raised with, is just how fucking slow it is. It's always that fucking slow tempo bullshit and it doesn't go anywhere. And it's you'll find a trend, okay, and me talking about this is I don't tend to gravitate towards very predictable music. So let's get back into it. Donkey Kong Country, that game was my musical foundation. I would not make music the same way at all. But even more than that, that game got me interested in music. From then, like, I wouldn't even say I was, like, into music. I was into video game soundtracks. It was like Donkey Kong Country and Super Mario RPG was another particularly formative one. What else? A lot of games like that, I guess. I'm picturing like a bunch of fucking themes run through my head right now. Fucking Crash Bandicoot, some of the Frogger games. I don't know. I was really into Pac-Man. And kindergarten or first grade, I was going to a Christian academy until second grade, but in the music class, I remember like raising my hand, being like, "Do you know this song?" And I was like, but I had even made lyrics for it, so I like expected like, do you know the song from Pac-Man, World 2? 2003, 2002, whatever the fuck. Do you know, even though I'm singing lyrics that I made up. Oh shit, that would have been the first song I ever wrote. Also from an early age, I was really into making mouth sounds. I remember my mom has told me like, damn, like, I taught you some of that, you know? That was me. And there's like recordings of me on VHS being on like into this very karaoke machine right here, by the way. You can kind of see it. Fucking perspective right there, yeah. Next. Yeah, I already talked about all that. Okay. So I wasn't really into like music until later on. I'd say like Michael Jackson dying was pretty important to my development musically. You know, because he died and they were playing his songs all the time. I was like, damn, these kind of hit, these kind of fucking go hard. And, you know, intern in 8th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. Actually, that would have been the end of 5th grade. Yeah, we were on vacation at the end of 5th grade, going into 6th grade. Then I got into like 80s pop pretty extensively through way of 80s on 8 on Sirius XM. Me and my mom would always play that like, what artist does this kind of game? What year did this come out? I've always been really autistic about like the year something came out. I have an encyclopedic knowledge of thousands of media items, be it film, video game, music, whatever the fuck, the exact year it come out, and if I don't get it right, I'm usually within a year or two. But don't quote me on that, because I'm shy. And if you make me sad, I'll cry. Real tears. Remember that. But you know, from 80s music, I got into classic rock eventually by Flippin' Little Dial. Got into shout out 100.7 The River when it was known by that in the area. I'm gonna fart, but I'm gonna cut this out. Actually, I might shit, so I'm not gonna fart. That's a fucking Ice Spice reference. I'm gonna keep that in the video. Fuck it. I don't give a fuck. You know, I got into classic rock, and then something else changed for me. The moment I started hearing, it was through the Muppets movie. It was through the fucking Muppets movie. Smells Like Teen Spirit. They had a barbershop version of Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. You'll know. So I got into Nirvana. Through that. And what can I say? I got pretty into the bands that Kurt talked about. Actually, not so much until later. You know, at first I was like really heavy into grunge and like 90s shit, like Metallica, Green Day, pop punk, whatever, from that era, Blink-182. And my progression kind of went like this, you know. It was like grunge. I pretty much went from grunge into butt rock post-grunge, which is funny. But that's what happened. And then I went from that into nu metal, right? But then another thing changed, right? When I heard fucking In Casino Out by At the fucking Drive-In, At the goddamn fucking Drive-In, I heard that shit and I was like, damn. This is real post-hardcore. This is real fucking post-hardcore. This is shit. You know what I mean? I wasn't about those fucking scene bands. God, like Bring Me the Horizon and shit. Nah. That's fake post-hardcore. That's fucking poser shit. Right. I originally was into fucking hot water music and fucking Small Brown Bike and Title Fight and Lot of Speed and all those like real copy pasta real emo bands who I've come to love a lot of scene shit. Like, if you don't know much about me, my favorite album is Watch Out by Alexisonfire. For the past year, I've been fucking obsessed with it. What the fuck? But this isn't about Alexisonfire. This is about how edgy I was in high school. In order to tell you that story, I'll have to take it all the way to the beginning. When I was in a band called Nuclear Event with a guy named Quinn that I knew in math class. You know? And he really liked American Idiot by Green Day. The whole album. The Broadway play. I'm not going to leave that in there. Yes, I am. So naturally, we just decided. He decided that. I'm sorry, Quinn, but you were kind of a piece of shit to me. Anyways, we were fucking young. I was a piece of shit to other people too. You know, unpack trauma and all that shit. I'm sure Quinn's doing some really cool stuff nowadays. So, shout out Quinn. I probably wouldn't be playing drums if it wasn't for you. Shout out fucking Quinn. Yeah. You know, we did some fucking Nuclear Event shit. And you know, it fizzled away after a while because there was some creative differences. And then I formed a band called Into the Nothing with my childhood friend Matt Phillips and this guy Brandon, who was such a good guitarist. I hope that he's doing well too. I haven't talked to him in a couple years now. Quack. It didn't fucking work, but I'm a duck. I'm a goddamn fucking duck. Yeah, like. Fuck. My life's over. Yeah. Into Nothing. We kind of played like butt rock adjacent stuff. There was definitely some like bluesiness that seeped in there, as well as some like honestly kind of post-rocky stuff. That was all Brandon though. Matt was kind of like more the power chords, chunky riffs kind of guy. And Brandon was like, yeah, I got like 3 pedals and shit. Now, he probably had like a line 6 or something, but it sounded good. No. Brandon was a good guitarist. He's only gotten better through the years, I bet, too. Or last time I heard from him. Yeah, I was in fucking that band. And then I was in a band called General Disregard with this guy Neil. His claim to fame being that he was arrested one time at school, and the rumor was that it was on terrorism charges because he had fireworks in his backpack. And we were kind of like, I hate to give this as a like point of reference, but you'll understand why. We were like Burger Records kind of shit. We sound like the fucking Thermals. We sounded like the fucking Together Pangea kind of shit. At least in the recording, by way of recording. We definitely jammed a lot of shit. I wish we had recorded our Clutch cover, because we did do that one time. But yeah, I remember Neil got me into a lot of skate punk and stoner metal. So by the end of high school, like, I was bumping a lot of skate punk and like didn't know how to skate, which is so me, so very me. But, you know. Oh, also around the time of Quinn and Nuclear Event, I was starting to make solo music. My first experiences with DAWs were with Audacity. I was originally like converting some cassettes to MP3 that my parents wanted me to do. But a few times I was like, I wonder like what it'd sound like if I just did this to a Led Zeppelin recording, and I kept that in the MP3, like some weird shit. And that eventually led us way to making mashups with different songs. Really, really janky mashups that were otherwise funny. And then that led to me making joke music. I made like a comedy rap project with my brother called Trust in His Skills. I know. Don't listen to it. It's bad. Though it is online if you feel so inclined. You can do some digging. And then I made an album called The Hamburger Album that was like just kind of what I surmised from the like experimental music Wikipedia pages. At this point I hadn't heard much in the way of experimental music. I mean if some Nine Inch Nails songs counted, but not really. But, you know, I made an album of some weird shit. I had like a 30-minute... it was more like 12, I don't know. It was a drum solo, long-ass one. They did all these weird experiments too. And there's some other songs. There's like some low-bit recordings of me playing Link's Awakening and shit. But otherwise I didn't really get serious about my solo music until... Serious, okay. I didn't get serious about it, but I did like really get my start on Music Banter. This one forum that I was on from 2015 to a couple of years ago. I still talk to the people from there in a different forum. But yeah. However, I was inspired by whatever everyone else was doing on this forum at the time. We had a thread called Forum Member Showcase where people showed the work that they had been working on the thread. And it was a lot of noise stuff, a lot of weird experimental stuff, a lot of sample phonics, sample Delia, vaporwave kind of shit. And that's how I eventually started doing this thing called Snooze Oven, which was a portmanteau, I hope I'm pronouncing that right by the way, of Buzz Oven, who's like Wilmington, North Carolina sludge metal band that eventually formed into Weed Eater. I think some of the members are, yeah. And then this one like meme that I can't even remember the full context of, that was like snooze. It was like zzz or something. I remember my ex showed me on Tumblr or something. Yeah, that was my like little joke project. I was like just kind of playing around with shit. There were some really interesting timbres in that, you know. At first I was just going for like aggressive, loud. That first release, Snooze Fest, is probably the most serious of those Snooze Oven releases. Because the rest of them were kind of made with like satire in mind. I made this one around that era called Metaphoric Trainwreck. That was supposed to be like my take at like the bad albums coming out from that time period, like Speed and Bolt to Heaven, that I do think is Kid Cudi's best project. Fuck the haters. But, you know, I was trying to make like a super long nothing burger of an album, and it was silly. But yeah, it's not like, it's silly. The cover was like a kind of like parody of Life of Pablo's cover. But you know, around this time I was starting college. I was graduating from high school. And I really wanted to be in a band, like a real bona fide band. I wanted to play shows. I wanted to do the DIY shit. I wanted to fucking drink. I wanted to fucking drink and smoke weed. and sit on people's floors in their apartments and like have good times and laugh and haha, we're being stupid young people and shit. And I got it with this band called Black Bouquet. I was a drummer for Black Bouquet. I put out these flyers and shit and these Craigslist posts, and we formed a band. And it was fucking fun. That's enough of that. I don't want to get too into that story. Real ones know why. Fake ones know why too, but for other reasons that don't involve knowing who I am as a person. Or, anyways. I might elaborate on that a little bit just so it doesn't seem mean-spirited. I hope everyone in that band's doing good. I really do. So the camera just did something weird. I hope that it's fine. It said insufficient write speed. Recording stopped. I don't know what the fuck that means. But I'm gonna roll with it. Let this be the midway or something. So, No Curfew Kids. It was supposed to originally be a dance punk, post-rock project between me and a bassist that I've remained friends with that I met on Yahoo Answers in 2014 or so. But in early 2018/late 2017, I had kind of exhausted my thing for making jokey noise releases. And I was like, okay, I want to I want to just make some serious shit now. Let's make some serious shit. So I decided to make the first No Curfew Kids album and use the name that I had already parked on Bandcamp for the project, but was using for Snoop Evan. Yeah. I just decided, fuck it, I'm going to use it. It's a good name. I like it. And I put out my first album that has a long-ass title, so I'll spare you. I also forget the whole thing right now, but it's a Luigi Russolo quote from his book Art of Noise. Or writing or whatever. I ain't read the whole thing. Spoiler alert. I'm a slacker. The first album, I was supposedly doing a classical thing. It definitely had some sort of layout and elements that were classical inspired. One of the tracks, in fact, being a warping of the Tristan chord, which is, I believe, from Tristan und Isolde. But largely just delved into what I had started off with Snooze Evan, the real heavy, uncompromising industrial noise hellscapes that I was progressively getting better at by this point. And it started quickly turning into something that I was getting a lot more ambitious about. I remember a few people were pretty discounting of those early recordings and were like, yeah, you don't really produce the same way that I do, or that you're supposed to, or that that's not how you make EDM, or this is boring, or people like music with lyrics, or whatever the fuck. And that just kind of stifled me for a while. It was damn, well, I can't be doing this for because someone told me not to, or whatever. But I'd always been ambitious. I'd always been yeah, I want to make a shoegaze country album in the vein of Neil Young meets Swans or some shit like that. And I've made shit that like put those things together in ways that were never quite what I pictured in my head. I feel like it's kind of just the artist thing in general that like in the process from idea to output to artwork, there's always going to be like creative things that come up, like new ideas that filter into the idea as it's being transposed, translated, whatever, what have you. And sometimes you're going to be closer to that vision. Sometimes you're going to make something better than what you imagined in that first moment. And sometimes you're going to make something that looks completely different from what you imagine in your head. And it's always been my thing that like, fuck it. That is what came out. Even if I don't like it, sometimes I still release it because I'm like, someone out there might. And a lot of the time, I felt differently about some of that stuff later. I quite like that I've released as much as I have throughout my life. It gives me a good picture of like where I was at in certain points in my life. Be that emotionally, artistically, process-wise, artistically, what my influences were. And I find that one of the most important aspects of this specifically is the mistakes that I see in the music when I had first made it versus like now. And it makes me think a lot about what mistake actually means in music. What does that mean to me? What does it mean to me that I fucked up? Does that mean that someone else doesn't like it? Does that mean that that's not right to that person? Or to that person or a collective of people? Or is that not right to me? And it's definitely not a binary with that. There's definitely a lot of different variables that play into like what could make something a mistake. But I always find that like looking back at those things, I view myself with a lot less judgment than I did upon initially recording and releasing something. It also teaches me like, okay, how do I want to try something like that next time in the near future? What wouldn't I repeat? What do I want to repeat? What mistakes do I want to work with in the same way? I love putting weird shit in my songs. Just like, that sounds fucking terrible. Fuck yeah! That's the kind of music I listen to. I listen to music that's fucking like, what the hell am I listening to? Because what the hell am I listening to? It's unpredictable. I don't like my music to be predictable most of the time. I like it to be exciting and engaging and keep you on your toes. I like it to challenge your meanings of what does that even mean? Is that right? What is right? Fuck you. It sounds like something and it's interesting. That's all that matters to me. Or that like I'm releasing something that I make something that challenges me. I rarely make the same kind of song twice. I'd say my process is always very similar upon releases, upon songs even. I feel like especially my electronic music always follows the same flow of like, you know, starts off a little bit like, those of you who listen to me would know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, starts off a little like ambient-ish, you know, has some like introductions of some of the elements, and it just kind of like does all that, and then like climaxes, and then like does this real steady drop, A lot of my songs end in further ambience or a drone, but it's also always that peak. I feel like all my songs have that like moment of clarity like in the middle and taper off, and also like have a little bit to come into that. With, definitely a lot of exceptions. But that's kind of the flow state that I find myself in. Including live shows, including genres other than electronic. But I feel like that's just kind of part of my artistic DNA. I feel like a lot of the intrinsic things that make an artist who they are means that like their work is very much like streamlined. It's something they made. You can tell it's something they made. There's motifs and elements that are carried along their work. Sometimes that the artist isn't even completely conscious of, you know? Which brings me to collaboration. I find that it can bring out some of the best in my work to have someone. Let me rephrase this. Let me think. It is interesting to meet others where they're at in accordance to their differing artistic chemistries. I find that sometimes that's how both people can make their best work, or they're most locked in, rather. Best is tenfold subjective, or whatever the fuck. But yeah, I feel like some definite creative heights can happen in certain artistic relationships. Be that like bands, like some people just can't make music outside the band setting. And that's chill. Some people really excel in that. I feel like I do to an extent. It matters who I'm around. It matters how long I'm around them. And it matters on a lot of other things. But I really like all the collaborations I put out. I like that nearly a fourth or a third or whatever the fuck of my music is just collaboration albums and EPs and singles with people. I feel like that's some of my favorite work that I put out. And definitely some that I hold in some sort of reverence. Sentimentally. Because I love people. I wanted to talk about two more things as it revolves around my art, and then I'm going to stop the video because I'm kind of scared of what my memory card's doing right now. It's going to be okay. I wanted to talk about, the way my art's going, writer's block, all that shit. Last year I started doing this thing, a challenge, that year, 2024, I would release 12 albums, one for each month. And I nearly succeeded. I got 11 albums out of the way, and I recorded definitely enough for 13, but some collabs didn't pan out the way I wanted them to, and that's okay. But because of that, I ended up relying on a muscle that I had always wanted to work on extensively anyways, which was improv. I wanted to make freely improvised music, and through that I became very confident in that muscle, but to the extent that I can no longer really write songs. Not as much as that I can't, but different circumstances that were going on last year led to this mental block that it's harder to sit down and be at the DAW. Most of the songs or albums, whatever I've released this year, as some of you may have noticed, have been live albums. I haven't really sat at my DAW and cranked out fucking 5 songs a day like I used to do in 2020, for example. But I don't know. I feel like this era of my musicianship has definitely taught me things that I want to take forward. And it's definitely been like very enlightening taking like the extended hiatus from recording like songwriting, because it's taught me like what I want to do as I move back into that. You know, improv's the basis of music itself, you know. You couldn't really have it without it, you know. The very first performance was very much improvised. And, you know, definitely don't want to give up improvising by any rate. But I definitely want to do more in tandem with both of those. It's also taught me, not that I care so much about quality over quantity. That bullshit's just built into the fabric of the United States. And I think perfectionism is very much like a barrier to artistic flow. And I hope that some of you out there that are perfectionists start to analyze that within yourself, because it's actually not really conducive as much as you would think it would be. However, yeah, I do want to start like putting more thought and energy into songwriting, and the way that I could be more happy with, like, maybe not more happy. Yeah, I just want to make some fucking good songs. I don't care if they're perfect. I don't care if they sound like unjanky. I don't care if people like them. I don't care if I like them, and that's what I want to do. I want to make some art that challenges me in that way that I have not yet done. And to wrap this video off, I want to talk about North Carolina's music scene a little bit. Something that's very, very dear to me and has been for quite some time. Yeah. I want to shout out some fucking people in my vicinity, because they're fucking awesome. You know, I'm going to point out like specific pockets of North Carolina's music scene and talk about like different ins and outs and things that I notice. Sometimes vicariously. Because, for example, I'm not too intrinsically involved in Greenville's music scene. I do like visiting there, but I do not live there. So my qualms with Greenville are going to look a lot different than my qualms with Raleigh, for example. But I'm going to shout out Rodeo, for fucking real. Fucking shout out Daddy Rodeo. Solidarity Fest 2 was amazing. You did an awesome job. I'm going to shout out Sammy Stevenson, who owns Panther Lake, and he's a sweetheart. And you also check out Regurgitate. You also check out Ryan O'Dowd with Better Inc. He's about to go on a tour. He's about to start a queer commune in Wyoming. Fuck yeah. Shout out Austin Glover. Shout out Z Smitty, Noisegrass, and Goatse. Shout out Ella from Vehicles of High Speeds and as yet named Sequel Project. Shout out Doug Llewellyn. Shout out Brian John Mitchell. Shout out Crow Meat Bob. Shout out Dan Macalactica of The Cave. Shout out Bryce Simon. Shout out who the fuck else? Shout out Isabel Carina from Process Sleep. Shout out Jackson from Process Sleep. Shout out I forgot your names. I'm sorry. I remember Colin. Shout out Colin from Process Sleep. I forgot it. Matt. Shout out Matt from Process Sleep. What other band do I know all the members of? Okay, shout out Hunter. I forget your last name, but from Terror Cell. You're an amazing drummer, and you're awesome. Awesome guy. Shout out fucking Siege, Future Vultures, CJ Siege. longtime buddy and collaborator. Shout out, shout out my mama. Shout out my dada. Shout out Dadaism. Shout out the Fluxus movement. Shout out Flesh Wounds. Y'all don't get talked about enough. That's some fucking real North Carolina shit right there. Check out Flesh Wounds. Check out Static as a City. Check out Bad Friends. I don't know if they're still around, but y'all are fucking rad. Fucking, we need more trans screamo. I say that as if like that isn't like the majority of the scene now, but still, we definitely need more trans screamo. Who else? Shout out fucking Convoy. They were fucking good. Now I'm just thinking, okay, so about the NC music scene. You know, I got my start a lot in the Raleigh Garner kind of aspect of that. Kaboom Art Gallery was a big thing for us. I find Raleigh's music scene is very cliquey and competitive and has a lot of drama. And that's just kind of the spirit of the city, I guess. It's the capital. The rent's high there. Whatever. I like the people at Ruma for sure. Ruma's some fucking real shit. Shout out fucking Raleigh United Mutual Aid Hub and the people that are involved in that, who I will not name. Shout out fucking, not shout out. Greenville's music scene is super eclectic. It's really cool for them to see them bringing out like really big acts. Kind of more recently, I think MC Homeless has been one of the big factors in that, because I guess he's got around for a long time. Shout out BT Burnham as well. You're fucking rad. Greenville, huh? American Babylon, Panther Lake, that's my fucking place. I'm always there. Even when I'm not. For real though, yeah. I love being part of the, like, inner Panther Lake circle. It's kind of crazy. You know, that place is so important to me. And that's kind of how you get in the circle, you know? Not that it's like an established thing or whatever the fuck, but, you know, someone told me about DIY organizing that, like, you know, the way to become important in DIY organizing is to organize. To just do shit, to book shows, to help bands out, to spread the word, whatever. That's it. That's all you got to do. And I think that's so important and easy and free a lot of the time to just collaborate, you know, and cooperate and whatever. I think there's so many voices that are worth hearing among the East NC scene. I don't really know as much about the West NC scene yet. I know like bits and pieces, but I rarely have traveled out there, which is a shame. That's a damn shame, for fucking real. But yeah. Shout out Tristan Colby. Shout out Goody Monroe. Yeah. So I said Raleigh, Greenville. Chapel Hill's nightlife is awesome. If any of you queers watching this in the area have a chance to go to like the Cave, Speakeasy, what else do I go to there? There's a lot of shit. Fucking, that's the fucking place. I love Chapel Hill. You can see anything you want at the Cave. There's all kinds of music there. But just the general vibe is so welcoming and, like, here it is, you know. There's some drama there sometimes, but the people there, I feel like, are very real about it and very, like, we're helping keep each other safe kind of shit, you know. They don't take shit, you know. If you're gonna, like, trump on someone else's shit, like, be prepared to get your shit talked about and fucking corrected. Because, like, you know what I mean? You can't be fucking treating people like objects around here. Not around these parts. You know, you can have all the fucking autonomy you want until you start evading other people's sense of autonomy. That's when shit starts getting fucked up, you know. And if you listening to this have some kind of power dynamic issue where you're like, yeah, like I like feeling a sense of control over other people. Yeah, you're probably not really a leftist. Sorry to say, you're probably not really a leftist if you even care about that kind of thing. But furthermore, you're probably just that's not really good. That's not a good human thing to do. Don't do that shit. Fucking, you're in control of yourself. You're not in control of anyone else, and no one can do that for you, but you. Okay. Yeah. I know precious little about other scenes. I do know KC / Chainletter is fucking rad. You're awesome. You're awesome. Everyone I'm involved with is a fucking sweetheart, and KC is no exception to that rule. But I mentioned them specifically because I'd like to go to the Fruit more. I've only been for a zine fest so far, which feels tragic given that I'm a rave girly. How the fuck? What? That's about it for that. Can't think of any other scenes particularly. I don't know what the fuck's going on in Fayetteville. Like, do they got music out there? I don't know. Anyways,